All right. Hello, everybody. It's the Meista from Brews and Tunes. I'm very, very excited today. I am chatting with Connor Posz of Dead World Reclamation, killer death metal band that I just recently discovered, actually. Really excited to be chatting with you today, Connor. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited.
Awesome. Why don't we start with, you have some really big news that just got announced today on Facebook and various media outlets. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we just signed with Neck Twister, and it's a label out of Belgium. They're awesome. They gave us an offer that we couldn't really turn down, and so we signed with them, man. And we're really excited to see what they're going to do for us and how we're going to work together.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. And you guys put out a new album not too long ago. I guess it was in April. Iniquity. Sorry.
Yeah, they're tongue twisters, man.
Yeah, my brain is not working today. And they're actually going to be releasing that in Europe, correct? Both on vinyl and CD, I think I read.
And vinyl and CD. I've been praying. I've always wanted to have my own vinyl, and it's finally coming. So that's just crazy in its own right. So really excited about that part.
Nice. When will that go into production?
It's all pretty still new right now. We're kind of still hashing out those details. So I don't really have a definite date or anything like that as far as when that's going to roll out. But hopefully soon, man. I mean, we're still talking about stuff. So
that's very cool. That's really exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you, man.
That's great news. That's very cool news. Yeah. And for anybody that's listening that has not listened or checked out, have not heard Dead World Reclamation, I strongly suggest you do. Great band. I'd say your album is for me personally, it's definitely one of the top 10 death metal albums of this year, in my opinion. It's fantastic.
Thank you, dude.
You guys, late, especially considering, that was an independently, you guys produced that yourselves. And the production quality is amazing. It's fantastic. It's such a good album.
We went through Jeremy Davis of Metasonic Studios, and that dude is just a wizard. So he really made us sound beautiful and pretty, and a lot of credit to him on that recording and mixing end. My bandmates are just insane. They blow me away every time I play with them. And it's just an honor to play with them and make an album with them like that. It's still surreal sometimes listening to it, or even seeing, the feedback we've gotten on it. And it's pretty wild. It's pretty cool, man. It's all happening pretty fast. So trying to take it in,
Yeah, that's great. That's good. And you joined the band, what, about 4 years ago or so, right?
3 now, actually. A couple of days ago, it was 3 years since I joined, or they asked me to join. And it's been 3 years ago.
Nice. How did that originally happen? How did you get involved with them? Were you in singing in other bands there? And just so people know, you're in Tempe, Arizona. The band is based out of Tempe. So kind of how did that play out? What was that like?
Well, I was in a band previously. Wasn't exactly death metal, it was more metalcore. That was my very first band ever. And that was something really more kind of just to dip my toes into the music world. I'm grateful for that band. I learned a lot from them. There was eventually a time where I felt like I was ready to leave and look for something else, because at heart I was a death metal guy. I wanted to play death metal. So I used the magical powers of Craigslist and looked for death metal bands, and sure enough, Dead World was looking for a vocalist, and I just wrote him a little letter about me. And Andre, my guitarist, asked for a 30-second recording video to our first single that I put out with them, called Drown Beneath Fang and Scale, and sent it their way. They liked it, asked me to come audition a couple times, and right before the show they were playing, I was pretty sure I was just going to be kind of a fill-in at the time, kind of more of like a question mark. And before the show, they just kind of sat me down. They're like, "Hey, we want you to be in the band. We think you're awesome." And I was like, fuck yeah, man. So yeah, that's how it happened. Those guys are awesome. I love them.
Yeah, it's great. And you guys are such a good fit too. I think, like your vocals, layered on top of those guitars. I mean, it works perfectly. It's like magic, I mean, from that, that opening song, once, when I first heard it, it was like, holy shit, this sounds like it's just perfect. It's just, I can't think of a, for lack of a better term, I mean, it's just like,
it's just kind of organic,
yeah.
Happens. It's like it was supposed to be like that. It's weird to explain. I know what you mean.
Did you have that sense when you first started playing with them, like initially?
Nope.
Just
when I first started playing with them, when I first started, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but when I first started playing with them, I shit myself because I was not, like I said, my last band, they're kind of a metalcore, a little softer, not technical, not they weren't shredding as hard. So it was my first death metal band, man. When I got into that practice and they just started, going crazy, I was like, I don't even know how to keep up with this, man. So I just tried my hardest and screamed my friggin' lungs out. I was intimidated for sure, man. They're like I said, I mean, the album speaks for itself. They're musicians, man.
Yeah.
They know how to play, and it felt like I was auditioning for a pro band, which, they play their instruments like pros. So, but eventually I got over that. And once I started to get to know the guys, we became a family and became brothers. And now it's just like, there's, when we practice or when we play shows, it's like we become just one entity, kind of, we can feel each other when we're playing. We can sense each other's presences. It sounds goofy and cheesy, but like you really do get that sense of one unit working together. It's pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, I would imagine you guys kind of feed off of each other, and that live atmosphere. That's really cool. I was curious about the kind of the writing process. Obviously this is a seasoned band to some degree, and you joined, so with Aura of Iniquity, what was the writing process like? Is it kind of a collaborative process, or how does that work with the band?
My process for this album was very easy because they already had these songs pretty much written out, and most of the lyrics, at least 8 out of the 10 songs, had lyrics already by the time I joined.
Oh wow.
There's already skeletons of these songs. I came in, they're like, hey, we're writing a new album, let's get it done. I'm like, damn, all right, that's quick, So everything was pretty much laid out for me on this album, thanks to Andre. Andre is the lyricist of the band for sure. He wrote all the songs. He is like an English major, and that dude writes straight poetry. There's times I still have no idea what the hell I'm saying when I'm singing the friggin' words, but it sounds badass. And his lyrics make me feel like they give me a sense of power and kind of, it's just, he's very, very good at writing. I know him and Dakota will collaborate together, our other guitarists, and they'll come up with riffs. It's a lot of writing on like Guitar Pro stuff. We'll kind of write or kind of, rough draft our stuff on there, and then we'll polish it up on the instruments. And it kind of starts out that way. And then everyone kind of practices on their own, fills in their parts, and then we come together, practice, and throw it together, see how it works, and then flatten out the folds. So
very cool. Kind of, maybe this is too early. I realize the album only came out several months ago. Are you guys working on any new material? Are you
it's more like not necessarily working on new material, but when it comes to us, we'll make sure it's jotted down. Like my guitarist is already writing stuff. He'll send us some riffs every now and then in the group chat, and they'll sound sick, and it'll just spark some ideas for the rest of the members, and we'll start getting creative and whatnot. So I think our goal for next year is to try to get some new music out there. Maybe not a full album, but maybe not an EP, maybe something in the middle. But yeah, definitely, I think we're definitely trying to get some new music out there next year.
Cool, very cool. And I know you guys just did you did a live show not too long ago. within the past couple weeks.
Yep.
Are there, do you guys have plans for, I mean, like, you know, not just live shows, touring, especially now that you're signed? Is there any sort of talk about touring at this point?
There's always talk about touring. I mean, as far as shows go, at least locally, it's tough with the new COVID mandates that they're putting on venues, or that a lot of the venues have agreed with. So it'll be tough, because we don't want to, you know, play a show locally and then have it be half the turnout or worse of what it would have been without the mandates. So touring, we've always talked about going on tours with some little road warrior tours with some of the local bands here, maybe hit a couple of states around us. And then also with the Neck Twister, man, you know, there's possibility of getting out there in Europe in the next 2 years. So that's definitely something that's on our minds within the next 2 years. So
nice.
It would be awesome.
Yeah, that's really exciting news. Yeah, I mean, hopefully that will come to be, you know, hopefully, you know, things will settle down a little bit. And yeah, I mean, the idea of you guys getting on the, you know, especially now that you're with, you know, Neck Twister, that would be really cool, like a European tour, and
oh yeah,
at least festivals and things like that. That would be great.
Oh yeah, that'd be incredible. It'd be surreal, you know. I'm hoping for it, man.
Nice. Yeah, me too. And since I'm in a surrounding state, I'm in Utah. Yeah, nice. I would love to see you guys come up here. That would be great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's some small cool venues that I think, you know, would fit really well. You guys would fit really well with, and some of the local scene of the, you know, there's a few death metal bands here as well that I think would work well. So that would be cool.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
The furthest I've been into Utah is St. George, and that's not very far at all. So
no, it is not. Yeah, that would be great. That would be great if you could get up here. Except it's cold now.
Oh yeah, man.
So let's go back in time a little bit and talk about kind of how you started in music. What was the impetus there? How did you originally get involved in music? Did you come from a musical family? And then how did you get involved in metal?
Okay. Let me transcend back into the past. My dad is definitely the driving force behind my musical abilities and my love for music. He taught me at a very young age. He bought me a guitar. I mean, he's a music guy, so music's on all the time, no matter if you're in the car, you're at the house, no matter what. Even on the TV, he's watching concerts, you know, he's watching music videos. I was surrounded by it. So I was in love with bands like Aerosmith, Pink Floyd, AC/DC, all those classics, Rush. And my dad bought me a guitar, and I started learning how to play guitar. And I was originally a guitarist for a long time. Never even really thought about doing vocals. And eventually I kind of just branched out. I think I remember one time when I was younger, I just went into a Hot Topic back when Hot Topic was actually, you know, an intimidating place to go into as a youngster, at least. And I just remember seeing all these crazy t-shirts on the wall, and I was just like, what the hell is this? And one caught my attention. It must have been at least like maybe 10. And it was a Godsmack shirt. And I just remember, and I come from a Catholic, I'm Italian and Irish, so pretty Catholic. So I remember seeing Godsmack on the shirt, and I was just like, what the hell is that? You know, scared me a little bit. And, you know, I started dipping my toes into it a little bit. And Godsmack definitely was Godsmack and Avenged Sevenfold for sure. I remember seeing the Bat Country music video for the first time, and I was just like, man, this is wild. I felt guilty watching it, you know, but I loved it. And those guys definitely were the driving force into metal, and it just got progressively harder from, you know, I loved Slipknot, I loved all that new System of a Down, all that stuff. And eventually I crawled into stuff like Cannibal. I started getting the death metal. I was developing into a horror fan as well. I'm a huge horror fan. So all that death metal, you know, that just aligns with each other.
Right.
So I started getting into the Cannibal Corpse and Morbid Angels and Deicides and classics. Then I started getting into the newer stuff, the Black Dahlias and, you know, all those bands. And yeah, man, my dad for sure is the driving force behind my musical inspiration. He's that one guy that's like, every time I find new music, I'm like, dude, you gotta hear this. And
Nice.
he's definitely, he's not, you know, a metalhead by any means. Probably the hardest thing he listens to is Metallica, but he definitely loves my love for the music. And so he'll sit there and he'll listen to a couple death metal songs, and you can see it on him. Like he starts to kind of understand it a little more and more that he listens to it. He's kind of catching the rhythm and whatnot. And then he'll tell me his thoughts. I love it, man. It sounds like, you know, medieval. I want to ride on a dragon and, you know, fight people. I'm like, yeah, exactly, dude. That's what it is.
There you go.
So,
very cool. Does he come to shows?
oh, they come. My parents are the most supportive parents in the world, dude. They come to every single show. They probably, from my even since my first band, they probably missed maybe like max 2 shows.
Oh wow, good for them. That's cool.
Yeah, they are the most supportive parents. I couldn't ask for better parents in the world, man. They support me and my brothers in anything we do. So they're awesome, and they're always up at the front too. And I try to warn them sometimes for shows. I'm like, you know,
Yeah.
you might get beat up sometimes, but
Yeah,
my mom's only a 5'3" little Italian woman, so
right. Yeah. Don't get too close.
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
if a pit breaks out, Jesus. Yeah, she can get destroyed. That's
She's
scary.
a tough woman though. She doesn't take no shit. So you know.
Good for her. Nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So what was the switch for you? What changed from being a guitarist to a vocalist? When did you decide you wanted to do that?
Well, when I was into bands like As I Lay Dying and stuff like that, before the whole Tim Lambesis thing happened, I remember I was like, damn, that dude's voice is just badass. And I was always curious. Same thing with Corey Taylor. Corey Taylor was a huge one for me. I would literally, there was a point where I was driving parts for Ford, and I would just be inside my van all day listening to Slipknot, screaming my lungs off. And I was a guitarist, but I just loved the way that, I don't know, man, I just loved getting out that aggression vocally, because I didn't have a guitar on me all the time while I was working, you know, so I had to express my music some other way. And I realized I was like, I'm not bad at this, you know, I can kind of get those same tones as Corey. And this was before I was using any technique, you know, so in hindsight, I was probably killing my throat. But so I remember once I moved back from Hawaii, I got this bug, and I was just like, I think I want to, you know, actually do something. Instead of being a fan of music, I want to start making it. And that's when I was with my fiance then, and she's like, just do it. And so I just started searching everywhere on the web, used the power of Craigslist again, found my first band, and I had auditioned as a guitarist originally. And I was nervous as shit, because even as I'm no death metal guitarist, I'm no shredder, man. I can play the basics and I can, you know, play some decent songs, but I'm no death metal guitarist. And I went there and I played, did my best. The original screaming vocalist was supposed to be there, but I guess he just dipped on them and he ghosted them and never showed up. So I had mentioned on my ad that I could do some vocals, very amateurly. And so when he didn't show up, the guitarist from my original band, he asked me, he's like, I noticed you said you could do some vocals on your ad. Do you want to try them? And I was nervous as hell, and I was like, sure, fuck it, let's do it. And we did it. We were doing My Curse by Killswitch Engage, and I hit that first high, and they all stopped, and they had to go turn down the monitor. They're like, all right, let's run that again. And we ran through it, did the song. And by the time we were done, that guitarist came up to me. He's like, I know you came as a guitarist, but you're a pretty damn good screamer. You want to do that instead. And an instant relief came over me, because there's something about playing guitar on stage, man, that's just so 10 times the nerves than I feel like screaming vocals. Because when you mess up on guitar, you mess up, man. Right. You gotta catch back up. It might not sound good. If I fuck up vocally, I'm mumbling words and I'm just making scary noises, you know? Right. So there was a sense of relief there. But then there was also a sense of pressure, because I was not a vocalist, and I needed to learn to be a vocalist. So that's when I started doing technique, and I listened to a lot of like Lamb of God, and I started listening to Randy Bly, and
Nice.
his range is just insane. And that's where I credit a lot of my range originally to Randy, because that's a lot of what I practiced on in the beginning. I polished it up a lot with listening to Trevor from Black Dahlia, but Randy, as far as my range goes, is definitely the soul. He's the soul of my my range, that's for sure.
It's funny you brought that up. I was actually going to ask you if Randy Blythe was an influence. Just I can hear it a little bit in
yes,
in in the new album, definitely. And that's one thing that's I think is really cool about the new album. And it's interesting. I know the new label kind of labeled you guys as melodic death metal. I would say you're more traditional death metal, but there's a lot more to it. There's some really cool elements in there. In fact, I would say with your vocals too, there almost seems to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you touch a little bit on black metal too, just a little, just sort of, just kind of touching on it, which is cool. And I've always liked that. I've always liked the kind of the marriage between black and death metal, especially vocally.
It's hard, man. People ask us what genre we are, and we usually just say death metal, or we'll just say melodic death metal. But we do have a lot of people that are just like, you're tech, you're melodic, you're this, you're that, and we're just like, man, I don't know. We're because we do have a lot of tech parts. We have a lot of melodic parts. We have a lot of core parts. There's parts that sound like deathcore breakdowns. So it's difficult to pinpoint our exact genre. I just like to tell people melodic death metal. But yeah, definitely vocals, a lot of black metal in there, a lot of weird kind of, not necessarily highs, but kind of more like screechy, weird, witchy sounds, kind of banshee-ish kind of screams. I do love the black metal elements. It's creepy as fuck. So I think if you can add that in and make it work, then fuck it, go for it. A lot of influence from Travis Ryan as well. Love that dude. He does some weird ass sounds that I just can't get enough of. So a lot of credit to Travis Ryan as well.
Nice, very cool. You mentioned your love for horror films. Is that a shared expression with the rest of the band? Because there's definitely some horror elements, I think, to some of the vocals and or the lyrics to some degree.
I think me and Andre would probably be on the forefront for the horror lovers. We do love the fantasy of that genre. I know Mark, our drummer, is a little squeamish when it comes to gore and stuff. So I think he likes a good horror movie as long as it doesn't involve, too much mutilation and blood and guts. So, but I think me and Andre are pretty much we'll take it all guy. Definitely this album was a concept of like eldritch terrors and kind of the classic kind of monsters, werewolves, vampires, giant spiders, all that stuff, witches. That's a really important theme in my life. I love all that stuff. I vibe with it, man, and makes me feel good. I like October. I love this month, man. It's just a spooky month,
Yeah.
So it's I think Andre shares that same feeling, except he acts on it in a different way, of where he wants to tell a story with the way his mind works and the things that he's influenced by. When it comes to the horror genre, that dude can write a damn song, man. Like I said, I'll scream stuff. I'm like, I don't know what this means, but the more I do it, the more I kind of understand it, and all these songs start to have a different meaning. There's a lot of different underlying meanings in certain songs, and the horror genre, man, it's a pretty important thing. Like the next theme for the album, which we're not too exactly sure we're gonna do yet, but it's definitely horror related. Cool. So I mean, in metal, you kind of have to have that element in some of your stuff, But yeah, horror is a big ass part of it, man. Nice. Big ass part of it.
Now, will you be writing any lyrics?
I'm gonna try
riffs or anything.
I'm gonna try to write lyrics. I'm definitely not gonna add my instrumental abilities to this album at all, because that would only decrease our our success. So I will try to write. I know Andre likes to to collab, and he always wants to hear my ideas. It's difficult when you got a writing major, writing your lyricists, and then this guy comes in, he's like, oh, I want to write, let me write a song. You know, his are just so poetic, and mine would be probably more Cannibal Corpse-y, where it's just straight up, you know, chopping your head off, you know, fucking blood everywhere, you know, it just and nothing wrong with that. I love those kinds of lyrics, you know, it's like listening to a horror movie. But his are just so poetic and intricate, and it would just be hard for me to compete. I think my tribute to the writing process will probably be more like ideas that I can give Andre to write about, or maybe certain kind of situations that he could make into a chorus, or, you know, a verse or something like that.
Nice.
But as far as putting pen on paper, it'd be difficult to try to do that with Andre, and, you know, but he's just so damn good.
Yeah, and I agree. I you know, I definitely love, you know, like the Cannibal Corpse exhumed, you know, slasher kind of, you know, kind of lyrics. But yeah, it seems like Andre's got almost like a Lovecraftian vibe to the way he writes, which is kind of more cerebral, which is really cool. Yeah. So again, if for you out there listening, if you've not listened to this band, you definitely need to, because there's some really, I mean, not only are there amazing riffs, but just cool lyrics, and then obviously your vocals. It's a joy to listen to. I really enjoyed it a lot. I was, you know, it was one of those things where, you know, being in this industry, or, you know, I'm not really in the industry, but, you know, being a part, you know, in the music world, you know, a lot of stuff comes comes your way in terms of music all the time. You know, people send me stuff all the time, but I would say when I heard Dead World Reclamation, it was really a breath of fresh air. I was like, wow, this is really, really cool stuff. Like, this is incredible. This is incredible writing, incredible production, and, you know, I mean, amazing musicianship. You know, so it was one of those things where I was, you know, just from start to finish, like, I love this album. Like, this is incredible. Like, you know, where there's lots of cool stuff out there, but you know, there's some where you're like, oh, this is good, it's all right, you know, but where this just kind of, it was one of those where, and this doesn't happen that often anymore, but it really blew me away. I was really excited by it. So yeah, the idea that you guys producing more stuff is exciting.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's the new stuff that I've heard, at least the slight little bits that we have. That's just going to be awesome. It's going to be so cool, man. A lot of really pretty riffs, really catchy, pretty riffs. It's going to be a slaughterhouse when we release the next one, dude. I think it's going to be awesome. So, one of the more important things on the album writing when we were recording it was getting on the topic back of the lyrics. Andre's writing is so good. I didn't want to like destroy those beautiful lyrics with bad vocals, as far as enunciating wise, because you hear a lot of bands that you can read a lot of bands' lyrics and you're like, damn, these are really good, but the vocalist, his vocals are really muddled, and they all sound kind of bunched together. You can't make out words, and that was one of my biggest concerns and pinpoints on this album, was to make sure that I was getting those enunciations so that you could at least somewhat pick out most of the words that I'm saying. Right. And I feel like that was something that I did pretty well on the album, because I mean, I'm a metalhead. I've been listening to death metal for so long. I have an ear for it. I can listen to my music and know exactly what I'm saying because I know the lyrics and whatnot. But I want other people who maybe that don't have that ear but still enjoy the music to be able to be like, okay, I can make out what this guy's saying, and I can hear the story and what's being told, and it's freaking crazy what he's saying, you know?
Yeah. Nice, very cool. Yeah, really good stuff. Yeah, like, and yeah, you know, and as I mentioned, you know, yeah, the musical prowess of the band, which includes definitely your vocal delivery, it's incredible. It's just top notch. It's I'm actually surprised you guys didn't get signed sooner in some ways, because it's one of those things, like I said, once you hear it, like, wow, this is professional musicianship right here.
I mean, It's surprising that a lot of bands from Arizona aren't signed, man. There's so many good bands coming out of Arizona. You got Exiled Martyr, I Pariah, Malnourished, all these great bands, and they sound just pro, and they sound tier. Like these guys have these, like they do tour on a regular basis, and like they are signed. They put out this music, and their drive and their hustle is just tenacious. So it does blow my mind that a lot of bands get overlooked and kind of pushed to the side when they're so damn talented. You can go to a local show out here in Arizona, it don't feel like, you know, a national headlining show, because there's just so much energy and passion, and even the local scene goes so hard for all these bands. So yeah, I get it, man. It's there's a lot of bands out here that really deserve the recognition and deserve to be on a label. That's for sure.
Yeah, it seems like, you know, like you said, I mean, Arizona's always had a really strong metal scene from, you know, from the early 80s on.
Yeah.
You know, like the thrash metal scene in Arizona in the early 80s, there was, you know, a lot of cool stuff coming out then. You know, Atrophy, for, you know, to name one. But yeah, and it seems like, yeah, there's a right now, I mean, kind of, you know, across America, but I'd say, yeah, definitely Arizona has a really strong death metal scene, which is cool. You know, I keep reading about the scene there, and all these bands that, yeah, I've never seen. I read about them, I hear about them, you know, I'll check them out on YouTube or whatnot. But
You
yeah,
have to, man.
it seems like there's a strong movement there, and has
It's
been
so
for
strong.
several years, which is cool. And hopefully that will blow up even more so and get global.
Yeah, man, it's a great bond. I mean, like everyone out here, every show we play together, it's like just a family reunion. You know, we all show up at the venue, all the bands see each other, you know, hey, you know, act like jackasses and whatnot. It's a great time, man. It's just, Club Red used to be our spot, and that place got shut down during it got shut down during the quarantine, and it was such a bummer, man. That place was like home for a lot of us, and you know, now the Nile's kind of becoming our new spot. But when the Club Red shut down, that hurt the scene a lot. It was just a big bummer for all of us. So, but we're all trying to get back up on the train and keep it moving. So we're all hustling and working our hardest. But like I said, you got to check out some of the bands out here, man. You'd be blown away by the production, their music videos, their music, and just it's incredible.
Nice. That's cool. That's really cool. I was going to ask you, this might be kind of a ridiculous question, but just
that's fine. I like those.
Yeah, I mean, you and we're friends on Facebook. So you know, you had mentioned before you're a horror fan. I also know you're a comic book fan. Have you ever thought about incorporating any comic book superhero type of imagery into the music at all, or is that
yeah,
I mean, that could be pretty cheesy, or it could be really cool. It just depends.
Yeah, I mean, I literally just got back from the theater from seeing Venom. It was awesome. I loved it. Yes, I love comic books. I love all of that stuff. It is I've always thought about maybe not directly, maybe not a song directly about a superhero or villain, but maybe drawn off a certain character, kind of a story drawn off what their character's origins are, or something like that, or the way that character is. My all-time favorite character of any comic book, anything, is Thanos. So I think Thanos, if you know the origin in his comic book, the way he is in the comics, he is just a bloodthirsty asshole. He's remorseless, doesn't give a damn about anything but death. So I've always thought it'd be cool to write something kind of in that terms that kind of represents Thanos, but doesn't really say out loud the song's about Thanos, you know?
Right.
Kind of more, it'd be more something like around like a cosmic kind of entity, Eldritch, which we kind of have those kind of themes in this album. But to make that work, it would have to be something like that, like some kind of god who has the power to do all this destruction, and what his mindset is like while he's doing these kinds of things, and what he might say while he's doing these things. And so Thanos would definitely be, if I were ever to write a song about like comic book based things, Thanos would be first, always. So Venom is a big one too. I've just started to become a huge Venom fan. So maybe something along those lines, really alien horror-ish. So Yeah, I mean, I'd be open to it big time. And I know the whole band, we're all nerds, man, especially me, Mark, and Andre. We are big time nerds, obsessed with Star Wars, comic books, video games. That's all we like to do is just, sit around, smoke some dope, play video games, read comics.
Awesome.
We're big, we're just nerds. That's all we are. And I would definitely be down to. I'm gonna have to text Andre after this interview and be like, dude, I think I got an idea. It's a song about Thanos. You're gonna love it.
Excellent.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm glad I could be at least a part of that in some way.
Yeah.
I love comic books as well. So and I love metal, obviously. So yeah, I've always, anytime there's kind of a tie in there, science fiction, horror, any of that. Yeah, it's what I think that's what's always drawn me to metal in a lot of ways is kind of the sci-fi horror elements of it all, so which is always really fun.
Yeah, I love too that I still haven't read them at all, but I love that DC did the death metal runs. I don't know if you've heard of those, but they're so cool and I want to get them, but there's so many damn different storylines and interweavings, how comics are. So but yeah, it's just like a badass, really edgy death metal storyline. It's literally called DC Death Metal, and I guess there's a soundtrack and everything to it. And I've always wanted to get into that, but I just can't. When it comes to comic books and stuff, I'm really ADD, and I need to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in order before I even read them. It's a whole mess. I'm a psychopath when it comes to comics.
Oh, I totally get that. Yeah, I have a ridiculous amount packed away.
Yep.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I haven't read the DC death metal thing is either, but I've checked it out a little bit. Yeah, the imagery is cool. The thing I thought was a little weird was I was looking at the album, and the majority of bands on there are not death metal bands.
No, and that's it's fine, but it surprised me, but at the same time it didn't, because not everyone picking up DC death metal is a death metal fan. They're just reading it because they're DC fans. So I think if they were to put out an album, it would have been cool if they did 2 separate albums, maybe did an album really with death metal for the death metal fans,
Yeah, I'd love that.
But it's also like, I realize, probably a good majority of those people don't really listen to death metal, and if they do, it's not on a consistent basis, and they probably wouldn't want to, but I think it would have been fucking badass to have an actual death metal album, so you could read the comic books along with. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, I would have loved that. And that's the thing. I always I tend to forget this is, just because I love death metal so much, but I tend to forget that it is still an underground. Really, it has been since its inception in the late 80s, the mid 80s. It's never gone mainstream, really. Even the biggies have never really gone mainstream. They might have a few videos here, but if you ask the somebody on the street, like, they know who Judas Priest is, but they don't know who Incantation is or Morbid Angel, or they may have heard the name, but they don't listen to it. They couldn't name a song, and it would horrify them probably if they did.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think about that sometimes. Like the other day I was thinking about, I wear band shirts pretty much every day. And if it's not band shirts, it's horror or comic book related. So every time I'm out in public and I'm wearing a band shirt, I'll just think, I'm looking around, and like you said, you live in this metal world, you and I, and we're consumed by it, and it seems so big to us. But then when we step out into the real world and we're walking around in our merch and stuff, you rarely ever bump into anyone wearing another death metal shirt, or even, a fucking rock and roll shirt, unless it's, Rolling Stones or Beatles or something like that. But and I'm just like, dang, I do kind of feel like a little fish in a giant pond. I'm kind of, don't really have a whole lot of people to relate this to. No one ever is like, oh, sick shirt, man, when I got, Cannibal Corpse and dead things hanging off my shirt,
Right.
It's such a rare thing. It's one of those blue moon kind of things where you get a guy's like, oh, sick Cannibal Corpse. You're like, oh, fuck yeah, that's, it's a rare thing.
Right.
And,
it always kind of throws me off when I was at, I think I was at the liquor store. This is a couple of years ago. And I was wearing, I think I had a Morbid Angel t-shirt on, and some guy, and he was older than me. I'm 50, I'm old, but older than me, came up and he's like, oh, fuck yeah, Morbid Angel, man. I'm like, hey, how's it going? Fist bumped him,
Yeah,
like, right
yeah.
on. Like, yeah, never, because usually it's more people I kind of, ooh, what the hell are you?
Yeah, for
I
sure.
live in a very conservative small town or smaller town. It's not a small town, but it's smaller and it's very conservative and somewhat religious. And yeah, it's, I think sometimes I scare people with my t-shirts, even though I'm a peace loving guy that reads comic books,
Exactly.
drinks beer.
I know. Don't judge the book by the cover. You know, that's the old saying.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
those old people. That's an old saying. So you should know that one. You know.
Right. Exactly. I agree.
Yeah, it's funny. My coworker is he's a music fan. He listens to metal mostly because I listen to it sometimes, but he knows the basics. And there was one day where I was working on a car and he was standing behind me and I had my little speaker playing music. And like I said, he just knows the basics. He knows Cannibal Corpse, of course, because that's the name. Everyone knows that band, or at least you can associate them in some way. And I remember I was just working and he goes, "You listen to a band called Death?" No, I literally just turned around and looked at him. I was like, "What'd you just say to me?" He's like, "Yeah, Death." And I was like, "That's the biggest name drop I've ever heard you say to me." Like, I was like, "I cannot believe you know who Death is." He's like, "Yeah, dude, I think I've heard a song by them once or twice. A guy showed me." And I was like, "Those are like the Godfathers, bro."
Yeah.
And then I went on like a whole lecture with him about Death and shit. So, yeah, it's cool when surprising things like that happen.
Yeah, nice. I love it. Well, I don't want to keep you all day, but I'll finish up with one last question for you. So as I think you know, my blog is Brews and Tunes. I pair heavy metal with craft beer. I know you're not a drinker, but I wanted to ask you. So it's your weekend is Sundays, right? You don't work Sundays, so
Yes,
so Sunday night. Connor's chilling out, you're hanging out. What album are you jamming, and what like maybe what strain?
Okay, strain would be most like I'm a sativa guy most of the time because indica will put me on my ass.
Okay.
And I will become one with the furniture. So I mean, depends, man. Fuck. So probably a sativa, more than likely. What I'm listening to is probably, if I'm in, it depends on the mood. If I'm in a chill mood, it's gonna be something by Pink Floyd. Cool. It's gonna be Wish You Were Here album, or maybe the Division Bell. Nice. If I'm feeling rowdy, I love Ailstorm. I love those guys, the pirate metal band. So I'm probably listening to some Ailstorm, even though I don't drink. It's kind of, it's kind of contradicts itself, but I love Ailstorm. So I'm probably going to be listening to those guys partying. Let me think. And of course, Dahlia, man. Dahlia is like my number one right now. So anything by Dahlia, they're one of those bands where, I mean, their newest album was definitely a different direction, but I still loved it. But they're one of those bands where I could listen to all their albums and love them. So
great band.
Definitely some Dahlia in there.
Nice. Very cool. Well, thank you, Connor. This has been great. So everybody that's watching, if you read in the description, there's a link to the Bandcamp page for Dead World Reclamation. Please check them out. Buy the album. You will not regret it. It kicks ass. Congratulations again on getting signed. That's very cool.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to what comes of the band and where you guys go. I only see you guys going up, so very exciting. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, dude. Yeah, you gotta get out to Arizona, or we'll come to Utah or something, but you gotta come to a show. I'll make sure of it. I'll make sure it happens.
I would love to see you guys play live. That would be awesome. Very cool.
Yes, we'll make sure it happens, man.